Do I have to go to church to go to heaven? That's a question that sadly a lot of people are asking themselves. Well, let's break this down. First of all, quote unquote, go to church. That phrase, go to church. People have that wrong. Go to church implies people are talking about the building. They're talking about the church building, the actual physical place where they assemble. Well, that is not the church. The first thing we have to understand is that concept. The church is not the building. The church is the people. When you look at all of the letters that Paul is writing in the New Testament, when he addresses, he says, to the church, to the church, to the church. And he says to the church in these certain areas, Rome, Colossae, Philippi, Galatia, these places, these physical places is where the church is at, or where the church assembles in those local geographic places. But the church is the people. The church is not the building. That's the first thing we have to understand with this idea or thought process of whether or not you have to, quote unquote, go to church to get to heaven. So, number one, the church is not the building. The church is the people. The second thing you have to realize is what is the point of the church? Being with the church, assembling with the church. Well, if you look in First Corinthians chapter 11, Paul starts talking to them about the Lord's Supper, verse 17. He says, now in giving these instructions, I do not praise you, since you come together, not for the better, but for the worse. So when he says come together, he's talking about when they assemble together. Verse 18, he says, for first of all, when you come together as a church, I hear that there are divisions among you, and in part I believe it. And then he goes on and talks more about the way they're partaking of the Lord's Supper, which is inappropriate. They're not partaking of the Lord's Supper in the appropriate way. But I start off with those two verses, 17 and 18, because he's talking about when they come together, and he says, when they come together as a church, they are coming together as the group of people. That is the church, coming together as a group of people. And then when you look at First Timothy 3, you see something very important about the church. In verse 14, Paul writes to Timothy saying, these things I write to you, though I hope to come to you shortly. But if I am delayed, I write that you may know how you ought to conduct yourselves in the house of God, which is the church of the living God, the pillar and ground of the truth. See, the house of God, that phraseology, that's where people kind of get confused and think that the church is the actual building. But that house of God he's talking about, that's still the group of people. The church is the Greek word means the ecclesia, the called out. That's the group of people. And the group of people is the pillar and ground of the truth. Pillar is support. Ground is foundation. So the group of believers, the group of people, the church, is the pillar or support and ground or foundation. It is the support and foundation of the truth, which is God's word. We're going to study more about this in the coming days, and so hopefully you will be encouraged by it. But if you want to study more individually, please don't hesitate to reach out. Let us know. You can call us 843-553-5157, or you can email us at letthebiblespeak843@gmail.com.